This is Waris Hussein, and you're listening to Gallifrey Public Radio. Yeah?
This is Gallifrey Public Radio, a weekly podcast dedicated to positive enjoyment of Doctor Who. We travel through classic and new episodes, explore the extended universe, and play a few games from time to time. We do discuss news, content that has been officially released, and the occasional interesting rumor, but we'll warn you before anything considered spoilers comes up.
Welcome to episode 387 of Gallifrey Public Radio, where we can't tell you what happened to the drink cart. Honestly, we came into the studio, there were full bottles, and the next time we looked, everything was emptied or gone. We simply don't know. You know, breathalyzer? Nah, no thanks. That sounds like unsanctioned alien tech to us. I'm Jay.
I'm Kier.
And I'm Julie. This week, the second season of Torchwood keeps things snappy with the rather obviously titled Whodunnit, Sleeper. The team is all but certain Beth is to blame for the mayhem they've discovered, but why is everything she says to the contrary so believable?
All right, season 2, chugging along. We were impressed with the return.
Yes.
If our memory serves us, which it very seldom does. This is, season 2, cracks pretty strongly throughout. So what are the general reactions to this sophomore outing of the sophomore season? Is that double sophomore? Sophomore times 2? Quadmore?
Is it?
I don't know. Quadmore, I like it.
Quadmore, yeah. All right. 2 to the tooth power. Excellent. Jay, Sleeper, how did it strike you?
I did not remember this one very much at all. Little bits and pieces came to mind, but so I kind of watching it brand new again. I felt like it was a little on point, for what should have been a really thrilling kind of like spy story. It was not very nuanced at all. Like once you found out that Beth was actually an alien, it was like, okay, and now we're just gonna, we're hitting all the points that we have to hit now.
Right.
It didn't have that kind of spy thriller kind of aspect that it really could have and should have.
They had the elements of it with the questions of who did it and not showing it right up front. And her acting was very good to play it off, but you already knew, you just didn't know what the extent would be. It was kind of, just the last missing piece that was like, well, clearly this is Torchwood, so end of world.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I guess maybe it was just the leveling of the episode, as far as we've often, I think we were just talking about this last week, Jay, right? And Haley had brought up the point about that she enjoyed last week's episode because it seemed like it leveled off the peaks and troughs of everybody's reactions and the transition from scene to scene, or from drama to humor, or dark to light, and so forth. And everything seemed like it had a more gradual or understandable transition, right? Mm-hmm. And this one, I'm not really sure if it ever really had any peaks or troughs to hit. It just kind of hovered in the middle.
And the funniest bit was Owen telling Gwen she was the one who had to stay. Pulling that. Oh, don't worry, I'll get you a coffee.
All right. Well, we will definitely get to those. So let's dive a little deeper into Sleeper. Deeper into Sleep. Nice.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's an alien. But you know that because you are too.
No, it's not. I'm not. I work in an office.
Why do you give off electromagnetic waves? Why?
I don't know. Stop it. Why are you doing this? Oh, Mike, I want to go home. Why is it doing that?
I don't know. It's never done it before.
Okay. So the team dynamic for second season is something that we had hoped to see finally gel, because they've had, as we came into the second season, the team had who knows exactly how much time to work without Jack, define all of their strengths and weaknesses, who's alpha, clearly Gwen, and so on and so on. The pecking order had been established, but everybody had their role. Ianto is now like active member of the team. They gave him a gun.
Right.
He had a lot of lines.
He had lots of lines. He even had a couple of really good ones in there. He wasn't just a reactionary character. Owen in his place.
Well, so Ianto's actually stepping up big time. They're starting to give him the I know everything. I know the ins and outs of this building, and I know everything there is to know about this and that and that.
What was his line? No one knows more than me.
Yeah, I know it.
He got this bang his fist on the table kind of moment there.
Table or chest? Except feminine, so...
Well, both.
He set his hands on his
He's
knees.
He's got two hands. So thump chest, thump table. So would we say that based on what we got established as the new baseline last episode, almost said last episode, that we're holding steady? Or does it seem like now that Jack is back in the mix and back at the helm, that the team is getting even stronger? No sniping among themselves or anything like that, or does it just seem like, okay, they hit their level last week and this is just holding tight?
I'll be honest, I felt like Jack was the outlier this week, or for this episode. He was always very angry and very pushy, and I couldn't tell if it was him playing bad cop or if it was just Jack's very unhappy right now.
Well, he has a history of being, well, not necessarily even bad cop, but over the top cop. And you had that scene where they all come back to the hub, right? And I forget what the setup for it was, but they're all walking away from him. You know, he's changing his shirt or whatever, going, "Hey guys, come on, what's the big deal?" And they're all just cold shouldering him because.
Well, that's where I think that he's but he's on their nerves so much because he's being so angry, so over the top, so violent towards this woman who, yes, she's a threat and he knows that she is, but clearly on the outside she's still a human who's trying to figure out what's going on.
Right.
Pushing her to the max in that angry way wasn't what solved it either. It was the technology. Mm-hmm. So why beat her up emotionally just to get to that point later anyways?
It seemed like she had convinced the vast majority of the team at a clear point that even if she was to blame, she was not in control. I think they all had their suspicions about that. Even when they started, after they came around with, it couldn't possibly be her because she's so broken up over this, or she's clearly incapable, or whatever application they wanted to use. But when they came around to the fact that all signs are pointing to her, but she's still a wreck over this, so maybe she wasn't in control of her faculties or wasn't conscious or what have you, and they started making the suspicions. Jack wouldn't let up on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the things that kind of frustrates me is, like, if you're going to have an episode about a sleeper agent, don't name it Sleeper. Like, you know what's coming. So it
the
was
shocking bit would have been the husband wakes back up again and is the real one.
Yeah, and like I was half expecting that because that wasn't the obvious way to go about it. But it was one of those things. I mean, even to the point where they had, when they freeze her and put her in the vault, like, she is in locker 007. I'm like, you have all of the tools that you need, and you build a nightstand instead of a great spy story.
A bit ham-fisted in that regard, sure. We noted on that too. We're like, 007. Why are they really going over the top with this?
And also, double sleeper then.
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Sleeper agent and iced sleeper.
Yep. And neither one stuck. I had a question for you both, actually, and this had to do with it had to do actually with the cryogenics in this too. Were all of the steps that Torchwood was taking to try and either solve or abate this mess actually making it infinitely worse, or was that just my observation? triggering the entire cell.
Right. So taking her offline is what triggered the entire cell to activate. So yes, Torchwood's fault, 100%. However, if they didn't do it, then you kind of have to look at what would the future have been. How close were they to doing this in 6 months, a year, gathering for years and years and then doing it later? You don't know that.
Yeah.
And that's what Jack's point was.
Yeah, and I mean the fact that, at the end we hear it's like, oh, well, we got tons of information about Torchwood and about you and about all this stuff before you took her offline. So it's clearly like because they went ahead and deactivated her, they're like, all right, we're going to have to move up our timetable to this point. But it wasn't like if they hadn't taken her out, it wouldn't have solved anything. It wouldn't have helped them in any way. Like, this honestly was best case scenario.
Did they know about all of them in Torchwood before she went into literally the lair and did the whole wide sweep? Now she's taken everything in, and the rest of the cell has done their research on their subtle...
That's the way I kind of figured it, too. I mean, all this tech that's residing in her arm here is something that I would imagine that through proximity, she gets inside the hub and she's just sitting there Bluetooth sucking down the entire thing once she's on the inside. So again, Torchwood not exactly making the best calls.
So then do we blame the burglars for interrupting the cycle of it? Because they clearly weren't plants.
I don't know.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Circumstantial and collateral damage. But it brings up another point, which was, as you mentioned, Cell 114 saying that they now have all of this intel and that there are more of them out there that Torchwood is completely unaware of, not to mention the fact that it is only one of who knows how many cells lying dormant. And it gives this whole... It does give this good aspect to the episode of, oh, okay, you've scratched the surface of something big. This is going to be fun in the weeks to come.
Right.
But no.
This is a standalone?
Never gets used again in televised Torchwood. I think it gets used in an audiobook years later, and that's it. Does that feel like a wasted opportunity, or does it feel like a waste of even setting it up in the first place because you could have done something different instead of making it part of this big invasion initiative that never really pans?
Yeah, I feel like it was that they were throwing stuff at the wall to see what stuck. This obviously would have been the first in a larger story. It just never got the traction. People didn't seem to be interested in it, so they just let it languish.
There was a ratings drop from episode 1 to episode 2 of season 2, but I don't know if that necessarily that's not necessarily indicative of what taste this left in people's mouths, but it trended going into the third episode as well. So I think it was something where they didn't, yeah, you're right. Maybe it just wasn't what they wanted from this storyline. Yeah.
And so that may have been part of it. It may have also been that they didn't like the way that it actually came to fruition, It might have been like, oh no, this sounds like it's going to be awesome, and then once the episode actually aired, it's like, oh well, it's not quite what we thought it was going to be, so they just let it go. And I don't know. I feel like it could have been something cool, but I don't feel like we were robbed of anything earth-shattering.
The reveal of it could have taken a different turn. And I feel like they did get to the very end with 1 minute to spare, that very high anticipation, but that there's a next episode, so that they don't blow up. So...
Well, it's only episode 2, so clearly they're going to get through this.
Yeah. I don't think that we were robbed of anything from the future, but I feel like if it were a whole movie and you didn't know it was coming, maybe, but... And the little beep, their arm buttons turned into just intricate phones. And the way that they could just pop bombs out of that from nowhere seemed hinky to me.
Flesh bombs.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So I think, what this actually made me think of? Jay, you said that this felt like a kind of, throwing ideas at the wall. This felt like a bit of a season 1 episode.
Kinda, yeah.
With the exception of the stronger team status, but just from an adversary and plot point respect, this felt more like something that they were, flying kites in season 1 to see if it would be an interesting thing to chase.
Yeah, it kind of felt like they wanted a bigger arc, but they didn't know how to go about it, so they were testing the waters on different things.
Yeah.
So had this landed a little more solidly, maybe this would have been what we got, and we would have missed, Children of Earth altogether or something.
Well, again, maybe this is lesson learned, because there are some aspects of Children of Earth.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That seem like it kind of pulls from this a little bit. The idea of the adversary that is there and seems to be manipulating, but you don't see them for quite some time. And in this one, I do commend the fact that we never see what the controlling force behind this is. We never know what the upper echelons of the cells are, or what's above the cells. Mm-hmm. So, and that's always got a little bit of a spook factor, right? The devil you know and the devil you don't. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So what would you say are at least some of the exemplary points in the episode, some things that kind of stick with you and say, all right, well, I'm glad they did that, or I'm glad that line was in there, or that was an enjoyable moment?
Jack running the car into the man.
that was pretty awesome.
Fair. Jay?
Ianto. Every bit of him. He was fantastic in this episode.
Solid.
Yeah.
I would say the lack of Owen was nice.
Yes.
Minimal Owen is best Owen. Give him a couple of snarky lines. Establish the fact that he continues to be a dick and move on. And building on Ianto, or at least putting a finer point on it, Ianto's suits.
So classy.
His wardrobe in this episode was I can't even come up with a good yeet. I say yeet. I don't know. I don't know what it applies to. I don't know how the word
not
works.
This.
I thought it's like aloha. You can just apply it to anything.
No,
Oh
not
God,
this.
no.
Okay, so it's clutch.
There you
His suits
go.
were clutch.
His suits were clutch.
That's probably appropriate for the time too.
I think it is. There you go.
Time sensitive. All right.
Man, I am pushing 40 and just smacking my head right now.
There you go.
Man.
So enjoyable on the whole. I mean, it's definitely good to watch. There was nothing that I took offense to, or thought, well, why did they bother doing that? I had no
cringeworthy moments.
Yeah,
none at all.
Yeah, just again, it smacked a little bit of season 1, and they came out of the gate so strong in the previous episode that I'm hoping that this is just a matter of, we went the first lap at a full sprint and we had to kind of catch our breath here for a week, but we're coming back into it, guys.
And again, I absolutely loved the actress's performance.
Yes. And we were trying to figure out where we placed her from, because it felt like she should have been familiar from within the Whoniverse. And it turns out that she is. She was the voice and the CG model for the sentient supercomputer at the end of, or no, I shouldn't say end, in Twice Upon a Time, that the 12th Doctor has the conversation with, that brings Bill Potts back.
Yeah.
She was that golden figure. So kind of interesting. That was it was so weird how that was sort of sticking in the back of our brain. Her voice and just her manner of speaking. Like, we know her. Where do we know her? So
I never would have picked that out in 100 years, but
right?
Yeah.
We spent a good portion of the first fight scene wondering where she was from. So
Let me grab my tablet, because they're fighting. All right, let's move on. I want to find out where she's from. So, but yeah, there you go.
Big finish, bringing us the Time Lord Victorious series. And there's going to be a 10th Doctor audiobook added to it, but not from Big Finish. I'm confused.
Well, I think the clarification is that this is specifically an audio book, as opposed to the audio dramas or audio plays that Big Finish normally contributes. So when they made the announcement that this big collaborative effort for Time Lord Victorious was going to take place, they tapped over a half a dozen different groups, companies, and production teams that were going to be putting things into it, from Titan Comics to Big Finish to BBC Books to BBC Audio. So BBC Audio in this regard is just there to be able to do these strictly read aloud novelizations. So you may have some sort of character emphasis done, and because of the fact that this is actually going to be using Jacob Dudman, who's been doing a lot of the, if you've been watching a lot of the extra segments that they've added when we were doing the Doctor Who lockdown stuff, whenever one of those little extra stories or little codas were being written that ended up getting read aloud, it was most often Jacob Dudman doing it. He's got a great voice. He's a tremendous young talent. So he's narrating a book by Darren Jones called The Minds of Magnox. I'm hoping it's Magnox and not Maniox or something, and I'm just mangling the pronunciation. But it is a 10th Doctor story. But the moment I saw it, 10th Doctor audio. Ooh, they got David Tennant in the studio. No, they didn't. But it's going to be an opportunity to see if Jacob actually attempts to do a David Tennant impersonation, which could be worth its investment right there.
Might be interesting, yeah.
So you can get your pre-orders in now and get your hands on it in the first week of December, whether you choose to get it on CD, get it digitally, as most of us do. But they are even going to be doing a vinyl cut in the week that follows. So it's one of the first instances, I think, that BBC Audio specifically is doing it on all three available formats, which is something that Big Finish had established as kind of their, oh yeah, one of those weird hipsters that still loves your phonograph machine. Here you go.
Nice.
Something in the bad news column.
Boo.
I didn't even tell you what it was yet.
Well, you said bad news, so I'm just saying boo.
Bad news. All right, thank you. Bad news bears. We had been resting comfortably on the fact that we know that our holiday special is not going to be delayed in any way.
In the can.
It's in the can. It's
so excited.
Right. Well, savor that for as long as you possibly can.
Watch 1 minute every day for 30 days.
Make it last, because we have no idea what the ongoing impact of COVID-19 restrictions and social distancing are going to have on the fuller production of Series 13. As good as a lot of the European nations and the UK, who I am not now longer allowed to include with European nations, are doing about flattening their curves, the concern about multi-locale shoots and out of country, shooting abroad and things like that. They were doing a lot of their desert scenes in Spain or in South America and Cape Town and things like that. So that's all going to be dramatically impacted. Not to mention the fact that as part of their ongoing efforts to keep the curve down, they are still trying to maintain limited staffing for any sort of on-site production that they have, even in the planning stages right now. So again, it kind of goes back to until there's a vaccine in hand and being globally distributed.
Yay, animation!
Yeah. Let's bring back... I'm telling you, I'm going to go back and watch Infinity Quest and the other, whatever the heck that other one was, or Infinite Quest, and see what...
Xandar the Barbarian?
No, not Thunder. I meant the Doctor Who animation.
Oh, Thundar.
Dreamland?
Sorry.
Yeah, Dreamland. Thank you very much. So, because this, at least in that case, I don't know how fast the animation studios that they used to use for things like the animator reconstructions, maybe they can step in. I don't know. Well, again, the smarter minds than I are probably out there thinking this very thing, or have been thinking about it for 6 months now, whereas I'm just letting it pop into my head. But it was actually as a result of an online interview session with a number of BBC Wales production staff, including the director of BBC Wales, Rhodey Davies, who had said that with a production like that, with 100 people or more on any film location, whether it's A set, B set, what have you, there's really no way that the standard that they have established can be maintained with any mind about the staff's collective safety and that of their families and on and on and on. So, and I don't blame them in the least. We've all made varying degrees of sacrifices for this, and if the smallest thing they can say is, you know what, your favorite TV show is going to be a couple of weeks, longer of a wait than you thought, but you've already been waiting a year, so really?
I mean, it could be months, but still, everyone being alive the next year
It'd be nice,
for Series 14 might be all right.
Because living would be good.
It's one of those things we like.
Yeah.
But a little bit of I don't know how to categorize this.
It's a bright note.
Yeah, bright note.
Yay!
There you go. Yeah.
Always end on a bright note.
Stephen Moffat shared he was cleaning out some pictures on his phone, and
he's getting a notification. You cannot take more pictures because you won't delete your pictures.
Yeah, so he found some pictures from the trying to figure out Matt Smith's costume.
Right.
And it's interesting to watch this evolution go through, and as Moffat puts it, you can kind of see him go from like utterly dejected to extremely pleased with every step. It's great.
Yeah, is it me? I mean, they use various, depending on where you see this article reviewed, where they go through the very short little array of photos from Moffat's Instagram account. But some of them are describing it as, he starts out kind of with these abject, grumpy demeanor because he feels like he's dressed like a Johnny Depp space pirate or something like that, to the point where he's giddy with happiness and his resulting hip and trendy tweed suit and so on and so on. And yes, we do know that, as the anecdotes went, that he was the one that asked for a bow tie when they were testing costume pieces and things like that. But
look at that mess on the floor, though. He threw off so many more before this one.
Yeah, clearly there were others that he tried on prior to this. But even in that first shot where he's got sort of the open collar and he's wearing the sort of the 3/4 length coat, that's a Capaldi look.
Yeah, very much so.
So why is that such a bad thing?
Because he's not Capaldi.
No. Exactly. It's just not him.
Are you saying that Capaldi looked like a space pirate? No, he looked like the Thin White Duke. So, okay. All right. Words can hurt. That's all I'm saying.
It doesn't fit Matt Smith. It looked fantastic on Capaldi. It looks like Matt Smith is playing dress up.
Smith is cosplaying 12.
There we go.
Before he even knew he was going to be tapped.
He is a Time Lord.
He goes, nope, this isn't me. It's for later.
Someone in the costume department just really loves that outfit and just has them try it on first.
They put it on every doctor since Sylvester McCoy.
Trying to get this coat off the rack for 5 years.
I spent a lot on it, and now I really need someone to use it so it comes off my budget. Thank you very much.
Right.
I'm Josh Liston from On the Bubble Podcast, an oral history of television fandom, part of the Gunna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other awesome geeky shows at gunnageeknetwork.com.
Well, next week we're going to be coming back with a game that apparently we're calling Galactic Poetry Slam.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Only insofar as I couldn't call it the... I didn't have any Whovian adversaries that began with the letter L to call it the something limerick challenge. I'm completely lifting wholeheartedly from Wait, Don't Tell Me on this one because the idea struck me and I liked it. But the whole premise is that we will ask our contestants, other people in the studio, to complete the last word or phrase of a poem, a rhyming verse that I serve up, and they will earn points for correctly completing the verse, but they will earn bonus points for trying to identify what episode or story from Doctor Who, or its extraneous. I will include Sarah Jane or Torchwood on this, or even Class, maybe.
Ooh.
Yeah, keep it really. You don't even know. Earn extra points if you can identify which episode or story from the Whoniverse is being described in the poem itself. So, should be a lot of fun.
Interesting. All right. Well, this has been episode 387 of Gallifrey Public Radio. Until next week, this is Jay saying, I know everything. And it says so on the screen.
Such a good line. And this is Keir saying, and I thought the end of the world couldn't get any worse.
And this is Julie saying, go home, Gwen.
We'll see you guys next week.
And we'll see.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Gallifrey Public Radio. Want to keep the conversation going? You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, or just send us a good old-fashioned email to feedback@gallifreypublicradio.com. You can also give us a phone call at 754-225-5477. That's 754-CALL-GPR, and you may hear your voice on a future episode of the show. Everything's got to end sometime, otherwise nothing would ever get started. Join us next week for a brand new episode.
I'm Jacob Henson. Gallifrey Public Radio is copyright 2020. See you next week.